Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I hope that you guys can hear me a little bit better in this video. I just got a new microphone from Amazon, so I'm really excited about that. I feel like it's all coming together. I got the microphone, I got the stand, I got the light now. Thanks again to my boyfriend, Will. Love you. You're the best. And yeah, so I'm really happy that I have uh, these new accessories for my channel. So hopefully these videos can become a little bit higher quality for you guys. So first off, I wanted to apologize. It's been a while since I last uploaded. It's been kind of a crazy week. Not trying to make excuses. I just started a new job on Thursday. But I guess I really don't have that much of an excuse because we have had a ton of snow days this week. It's been great, not gonna lie. So our winter break got extended, so so happy about that. But I'm kind of ready to get back into the swing of things. But also kind of just missing the freedom of winter break already. But you know what? It's okay. It's gonna be a great semester. As some of you know, I mentioned in earlier videos, I'm switching from teaching from 7th grade to high school. So I am teaching mostly 9th grade classes and one 10th grade class. So that's going to be a bit of an adjustment this semester, but I'm excited for what this semester is going to bring. Obviously, I'm going to miss my old students a whole lot. I really miss them already, but I'm excited for this semester. So, yeah, so tonight I wanted to review some books for you guys. So these are some books that I've read over the years. Some of them I've read again and again. I love to read. English teacher, obviously. Um, so yeah, so if you guys are looking for a good book to read, just keep watching this video. I'm going to give you guys a quick synopsis of each book and tell you why I like it. So just follow along and thank you guys for being here. Okay, so the first book that I'm going to review for you guys, and I really hope the microphone is picking this up, is going to be this book. It is by Jodi Picoult, and it is called Between the Lines. So I read this book when I was like, I want to say maybe 14, 15 or so. My mom recommended it to me because she's a big fan of Jodi Picoult, and now so am I. So basically, this is that I already mentioned that this is a fairy tale. So it's a story about this high school girl. Her name is Delilah, and she pretty much hates school, but she loves to read. And she reads this fairy tale like again and again. She loves it. She's like obsessed with it. And in it, there is this prince in it, and his name is Oliver, I believe, right? Yes, Oliver. So basically, the book switches back and forth between Oliver's perspective in the fairy tale. So basically, he hates his life in the fairy tale book because he has to get in a position and do the same things every single day. So when she reads the book, they're like acting the book out as she reads it, if that makes sense. So he hates the repetitive nature of that, and he just wants to get out of the book. And Delilah, she hates her life in the real world, and she loves this fantasy world, and she wants nothing more than to be in the book. So basically, these two end up, I forget how, but they end up communicating through the book, and they grow this strong connection together. So it's a romance book, and it's really great. Like, you guys, if you love fairy tales, you will love this. Um, yes, obviously, no, not all these books are fairy tales. This is just the first one. Most of these books, a lot of them are historical fiction, a lot of them are just some classics. Um, I even have one in the horror section, and then a few others. But yeah, I just have a whole bunch of different topics and genres here. So, but this is the first one. It's called Between the Lines. Definitely, definitely recommend. All right, so this next book is called Out of My Mind by Sharon M. Draper. So I believe I read this. I think I was around maybe 12 or 13, maybe. I'm assuming when I read this. But this is such a good book. I remember reading this. It's not that long of a read. It's only like Oh. Well, it's like, okay, it's 295 pages, but like the font is pretty large, and it's so good. Like you will get done with this book very, very quickly. Like I remember, I think I sat down and I read this book in a whole day. And I wasn't even a huge reader at this time. This book was just that good. So, and it was also Christmas break, so I had extra time to kill. But so this story is about an 11-year-old girl. Her name is Melody, and basically she's in this wheelchair. She can't walk at all. She can't talk, and she can't even write either. So she can't do any of this, yet she is super smart, but nobody knows it because she can't express it to anyone. So basically, the whole book is just her inside of her head, how other people observe her, how she is like going crazy, going out of her mind, as the title says, because nobody can understand how smart she is, how what she's thinking or feeling at all. And when she's uncomfortable, she can't express it. And it's just a really, really powerful story. You guys would really, really love this book. So this is by Sharon M. Draper. It's called Out of My Mind. Great, great read. Definitely recommend. Alright guys, so before I show you this next book, please do not click out of this video, because once you see the title of this, you're going to immediately think, oh no, why would she be showing me this book? Because the title of the book I'm about to show you sounds very similar to another very steamy, erotic book. But this is not that book. In fact, this author had the title of this book changed because it sounded so similar to that steamy, erotic other book. But it is not even close to that book at all. So before you click off, it is not the same, okay? So this book is called Between Shades of Grey, not 50 Shades of Grey, Between Shades of Grey. It's very different. The author is Ruta Septes. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. In fact, I think she changed the title of this book to something like, sorry, I hope my microphone's picking up, Ashes in the Snow or something, because it sounded so similar to 50 Shades of Grey, but that is not what this book is. So this book I read when I was, I think, 11 years old. This book is super, super sad, but it is so good. It's going to move you to tears. So if you want an emotional roller coaster, read this book. So basically, this is historical fiction. This takes place around 1940, in the early 1940s, I believe. It starts out where this girl Lena and her family are taken by Soviet police, the Soviet secret police, the NKVD, I believe they were called, in the middle of the night, and they're taken to this labor camp in Siberia. So basically, the whole book follows their trip there and all of the hardships that they have to endure. And the whole time, the book is with the main character, Lena. I think how old is she? She's 15. Her younger brother, I think his name is Jonah or something, and her mom. And they all luckily are able to stay together, but they get separated from from Lena's father. So the whole book, she's trying to like send these secret, what is it? Yeah, it says, separated from her father, Lena embeds clues in her drawings and secretly passes them along, hoping they will reach her father's prison camp. So she's trying to reach her father through the whole story because they are separated. And it just shows all the hardships she endures, like hunger, um, the freezing cold. Her brother gets sick in it. So it's a very depressing story. So honestly, this might not sell you on it, but I can't tell you why it's so good, but it is so good and such a moving story. Like I promise you will not regret this. Um and it just shows what a mother would do for her children. Her mother in this book is the most selfless, wonderful person you've ever met. You will love her mom, and it just shows her love for her children. And it's yeah, it's just such a good book. And then there's some romance in there at the end. Lena meets this guy at one of her prison camps, and they fall in love. So there's a little bit of romance, and I believe there is a happy ending. Not going to spoil it, but this is a great book. You guys will love it. So it's called Between Shades of Grey or Ashes in the Snow. So once again, not 50 Shades of Grey. All right, so this next book is also historical fiction. It is called The Four Winds, and it's by Kristen Hanna. Kristen Hanna is my favorite author of all time, and I have many books back there that I'm going to tell you about today that are by her. She is such a great writer. No one writes in the way that she does. Just she is so compelling in her stories. I just love her. But yeah, so this is I'm sorry, a lot of these are pretty sad stories, so I apologize if you don't like sad emotional stories, then some of these might not be for you. But if you do, then keep listening. Um, but I promise, even if you don't, these are such powerful and compelling stories. I still think you will appreciate these. Um, but this is about the Great Depression. So basically, the main character, when she's in her, I forget how old she is when she gets pregnant. But basically, I think she's like 16 or so when she gets pregnant by this guy that she kind of just met. And already her parents were very abusive towards her. But when they find out that she got pregnant by this guy, they basically disown her. So they take her to this guy's family. They like bang on his door and talk to his family and say, hey, she's yours now. No daughter of ours would, you know, would have a baby before she's married and or whatever. So they basically disown her, and so her name is Elsa, I believe. So she goes to live with the guy and his family who impregnated her. So this is set in the 1930s, of course, around the Great Depression. So they stay at in this guy's house for a while until things start getting bad. Um, when they no longer can plant crops anymore. They're basically starving to death. There's a huge drought, and they talk about moving to California. So at first, I think Elsa is really reluctant to go to California, but her the guy who I think becomes her husband later, so let's just call him her husband. I think they get married later. Her husband really wants to go, but Elsa refuses, and she decides she doesn't want to take her family there. So I think what happens is her husband decides to go anyway, so he ends up leaving her and leaving the family to go to California on his own. So and Elsa doesn't go with him. I think he just wakes up early one day, leaves a note, and says, "I'm gone." So after that, Elsa decides, I forget how much later she decides to go, but she decides to bring her children. I think they have one more kid later on, and to go follow him, to go find him in California. So the whole book shows their journey to California, what they find in California, the disappointment that lay in California, how even though everyone said that, promised that it was going to be um, a great place for a better life, it's not what people said it would be. So Elsa discovers this, and California is actually even worse than it was back on the Great Plains. So yeah, so the whole story depicts her going there and the struggle she endures and the people she meets, and it's just about taking care of each other in dark times and how people just really need each other even when life sucks. So it's a great, powerful story. It's really sad, really emotional, but it's a great story, and I think you guys would really enjoy it. Once again, it's called The Four Winds, and it's by Kristen Hanna. All right, so this next book is also by Kristen Hanna, and it's called The Great Alone. So this is one of my favorite books that she has ever written. I read this like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. I can't remember exactly. But basically, this is set in the 1970s in Alaska, somewhere in Alaska. I can't remember where. So well, actually, it starts. I forget where they are before they go to Alaska, but most of the book is set in Alaska. But so basically, the main character's name is Lenny. I think the book starts out when she's about 13 years old. So basically, her dad got back from the Vietnam War, and he hasn't been the same since. He has a lot of PTSD, and he just has a lot of mental issues. And basically, he's very abusive. He's taken the family from one place to another, thinking that wherever they go, whichever next location he decides to take them will finally make him happy because he hasn't been happy since he's gone back from war. So, one day he wakes up and says, "Hey, let's go to Alaska." And so Lenny and her mom reluctantly agree. And they actually end up going and loving it there. And at first, I think his name is Ernst. Yeah, Ernst is the dad's name who's like abusive. At first, Ernst loves it. But then when winter comes and all the challenges that come with winter, like it being dark all the time, um, just and all the harsh climate, harsh cold, all the challenges that come with it when that comes, Ernst's mental state begins to deteriorate more and more each day, and he becomes more and more abusive. And so basically, like, not only are they facing like the cold, the wildlife, and other struggles. So not only is Lenny trying to survive against those obstacles, but she's also trying to survive against her dad and having to be in close quarters with him when he's so abusive and he like would hit her mom and just be a terrible, terrible husband. So yeah, it's just Lenny and her mom learning to survive in Alaska with their dad. But yeah, it's a pretty long read, but it's such an epic story. You guys will really like this. Okay, so there are a few more Kristen Hanna books here, but this next one is arguably her best book ever. It's called The Nightingale, and they were actually supposed to make a movie about this. I think it was supposed to release initially around COVID, but because of COVID, they couldn't. I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know if it's still going to happen, if it's still going to be ever be released, but it's been delayed for so long. And Elle Fanning and her sister Dakota Fanning were supposed to star in it, and I love both of them as actresses, and I was so excited. So I really hope that they're still planning to release the movie because the book was so great. I love both of those actresses, and I would really love to see that come to life on in film. But I'm just praying that that actually happens. But yeah, so this is another book that's historical fiction. So it takes place during World War II with the Nazi occupation of France. So it's about two sisters, and one's name is Isabel, and the other is ooh starts with a V. Vianne, I think. Yeah, Vianne. So I think Um, so they go two separate paths during the war. Isabel joins the French resistance, and then Vianne, she stays at home, but she reluctantly has to allow a Nazi soldier to live at her house. So yeah, so it's just a story of these two sisters being separated during the war and the struggles that they have to face and how they help other people during this troubled time. But yeah, it's a really great, unforgettable story. I think there's a lot of romance in this as well, but it's a really, obviously, also a very sad story, but it's a very powerful, very great book that I hope will become a movie. So definitely, definitely recommend this one. If you read any of these books that I recommend today, please recommend this one, even though it's, how many pages is this? 570 pages. I believe I got through this in like a week. it was just that good. This is one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. Um, so yeah, even when I was like for a while struggling to read, even though I've always loved reading, sometimes, it's just so easy to want to just watch TV instead and just kind of shut your brain off. But this is one of those books where you would so much rather read than watch TV. I know a book is good when I would rather read a book than watch TV. Even though I love reading, sometimes I can get a little lazy when it comes to reading. So that's how I knew that this book was amazing. Trust me, you will love it. All right, so this is the last Kristin Hannah book I'm going to be telling you guys about. Sorry, I know it's a lot of Kristin Hannah books, but like I said, she's my favorite author, and her books are just so good. So this next one is called Home Again by her, and it's about this cardiologist. Her name is Madeline, I believe, and she has this daughter, Lena. And basically, Madeline got pregnant with Lena when she was 16 years old, and the guy who got her pregnant, his name is Angel DeMarco, and basically he ran off on her and basically took off even though they were in love before, but when she got pregnant, I guess he got scared and he took off. And later on, Angel becomes famous. He becomes a big movie star, and then Madeline becomes a cardiologist, and she has a very strained relationship with her daughter. Her daughter has always felt like a piece of her life was missing because she never met her father, and she thinks that her mom is holding back information on him and she would like to know more about her father. So basically, what happens is Angel, he he's famous, like I mentioned, and he does all this partying. He does all these drugs and drinks a lot, and he lives this very terrible lifestyle, which takes a big toll on his health. And so he ends up having to go to the hospital, and it turns out that he needs a heart transplant. And what do you know? Madeline turns out to be his cardiologist. So they end up reuniting, and then Lena eventually gets to meet her father. But it's a great story of how Angel changes from someone who ran out on Madeline and abandoned her and their baby, but then he becomes a changed person later on. Um, so it's a really great story. Definitely recommend. It's called Home Again by Kristin Hannah. All right, guys. So this next book, this is the one that's in the horror genre. It's called Deep and Dark and Dangerous, and it's by Mary Downing Hahn. I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly. This book has clearly been through the ringer. I've had this book for so many years. I think I read this when I was like 10 for the first time. My mom recommended it to me. But yeah, it's really good, very eerie, very suspenseful. Um, so basically, it's about this 13-year-old girl. Her name is Allie, and she goes down to the basement one day and she's sifting through some old photographs, and she finds this photograph of her mom and her mom's sister, her aunt, and there's this other girl in the picture, but you can only kind of see her arm in the picture, and the rest of her face is kind of cut out. So Allie goes to ask her mom about who is this girl in the picture. Her mom seems like she doesn't want to talk about it, and she seems very appalled um, when Allie wants to know more about the girl or whatever, and she keeps trying to change the subject. So, but what her mom does say is that her her sister and this girl used to go to this lake together at this in this cabin. So Allie says, "Hey, I want to go to this cabin," um, and she wants to go with her aunt, the mom's sister. So the aunt is like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's go." And then Allie's mom is like, "No, no. You remember what happened when we were kids there? I don't want Allie going." Um, And Allie's like, "What happened?" But her mom doesn't want to tell her what happened. So that's all I can really tell you without spoiling the book. But it's a really haunting story um, about what happened when her mom and her aunt and this other girl went to this cabin on the lake when they were kids and what happened there when they were younger. And the whole book is just trying to figure out what secret is her mom hiding from her. So it's called Deep and Dark and Dangerous. It's a great story. Definitely recommend. All right, so the next book that I'm going to tell you guys about is The Catcher in the Rye. So this is by J.D. Salinger. So this is my very favorite book of all time. So it's going to be hard for me to describe what this is about because honestly, it's not even really, I mean, it has many themes, but there's not a whole lot that goes on in the plot. Most of the story is just what's going on in the character's mind, what he thinks about other people. And although there are a few key plot points in here, um, it's just hard to describe really what's going on in the story. But basically, at the beginning, um, so the narrator's name is Holden Caulfield. He's a 16-year-old boy, and he goes to this boarding school called Pensy Prep, and he hates it there. He thinks everyone there is a phony. So if you've heard of this book before, you know that he calls so many people phonies. Phony is one of the words that he uses the most to describe people. And I don't even know how many times the word phony is used throughout this book, but it's a lot. Um, but yeah, he hates it there and he gets kicked out of this boarding school. Um, one of his teachers tries to tell him to buckle down and he doesn't really listen. And he kind of just gets bad grades and he just doesn't really seem to care anymore. So he gets kicked out of there. And basically, this is going on around Christmas time. He just goes around to all these different places, just trying to find a connection, trying to find someone who genuinely cares for him, someone who actually is a decent conversationalist, who won't just blow him off. And I don't know, just someone who has depth to them, someone who he really can talk to. And although there are some people in this book that he feels like he can connect with, it's very hard for him to connect with other people. And I think because he can't connect very well with other people, he tends to be very judgmental of other people and he has a very cynical outlook on the world. And even though a lot of people read this and they might hate him and really dislike him, you kind of feel a lot of sympathy for him. And you find out that he's actually writing the story from a mental hospital. I think he was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. It does not specifically say that in the book, but it is speculated that that's what he has. Um, so at the beginning, it's revealed that his younger brother, Ali, died. I can't remember if it was when Holden was 13 or when Ali was 13, or if I can't remember how old Ali was when he died, but just the grief of losing his brother and how he thought his brother was just such a wonderful person and how much of a toll that took on him. So that's kind of probably what started Holden on this. Um, that's probably the main thing that made Holden just stop caring about everything. Um, but yeah, the whole book he's just trying to find connections with other people, and he talks about how he hates adulting, he hates the adult world, and he just wishes that children didn't have to grow up, and he just wants to forever preserve their innocence. And I mean, he's not wrong. Sometimes being an adult really sucks, and life gets really hard. And you kind of see where he's coming from, especially with how poorly he's been treated by so many different people. And you can kind of see why he is the way he is because of how the world has been to him. And not saying that you should just give up in life and have a cynical viewpoint of everything just because the world um, stinks, but you just feel a lot of sympathy for him. And I don't know. I could explain a few more plot points that happen in this book, but I don't really want to spoil it. And like I said, it's just kind of hard to explain. You just gotta kind of read it. You don't understand how great this book is until you read it. Um, I also read this book when I was a senior in college, and it's just one of those books where you can't really explain why you love it, but I love it. It speaks to a part of me, and even though a lot of what Holden says I can't really relate to, a lot of what he says I really can, and um, it makes me realize how I can be cynical a lot of the time of the world, and how I can, kind of just see the worst in people at times, but I'm trying to work on that and try to see the best in people and in the world. Um, but it can be hard, especially with the state of the world today, with all the sickness, disease, the suffering, and just the way that people treat each other anymore. It is kind of depressing, and I'm not saying this to make you guys feel bad. I'm just saying sometimes it's hard to find a reason to go on, but I promise you there is a reason, and it's God. Just if you feel stuck, if you feel like you don't know where you're going in life, if you feel like the world is crumbling, just just don't forget about God. Don't forget to turn to God. He's there for you, and I know that there is a purpose to all this pain and all of this suffering in this world. Yeah, I'm kind of getting off track here, but this is a great read. Um, I just I can't recommend this enough. Actually, I said if you read any of these books, read The Nightingale. Yes, I still stand by that, but actually, no. Even more so, read The Catcher in the Rye. It's a classic, and I promise you, it'll be one of the best books you've ever read. Um, yeah, there are some people that hate this book. Here's the thing: if you read this book, you're not going to be neutral about it. You are either going to love this book, like love it with a burning passion, or hate it entirely. I'm one of those people that love it, but take the chance, see whether you love it or hate it. Um, I love it, and I really hope you will too. But um, there were a couple more books that I wanted to talk about tonight, but I'm kind of running out of time because I really need to edit this video. So I'm just going to tell you the titles. One is called Island of the Blue Dolphins by Scott O'Dell. The other, The Great Gatsby, another great classic by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Another is called La Rose by Louise Erdrich. I really don't know how to say her last name. I'm sorry, I'm butchering it. And then this book right now, I'm reading this right now. It's called Magic Hour by Kristen Hanna. I love it so far. So I'm not going to go into detail about what these books are about because, like I said, I'm running out of time. But I also recommend those books as well. Oh my goodness, look at this great bookmark that I got from Half Price Books. It has all of these classics on it, like The Great Gatsby, um, Catch 22, The Old Man in the Sea, all these classics on here. I love this as a bookmark. But yeah. So that is all I have for you today. Yeah, I kind of should have just made this my list of sad books, but sad emotional books. I guess that's what I should have titled this. Maybe I will when I edit it and decide to change the title. But I really love these books. They all mean a whole lot to me, and I really hope that you will consider reading at least one of these if you haven't before. I promise you will not regret it. Um, but yeah, I love you guys. I know this is kind of a different video, but I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being with me here today, and good night, you guys.